Good afternoon. Welcome to Military Strategies. We are live right now, December 14, 2025. Go! Magic returns to Venezuela for the first time. The most legendary airplane ever. Yeah. The Harrier, the airplane that drove aeronautics crazy. The airplane capable of taking off from a parking spot appears off the coast of Venezuela and becomes part of the operation to liberate that great country. Family, this is Military Strategies. We're telling you the details of what's happening right now. Always invited, never compared. Let's begin.
Good evening, family. Welcome to Military Strategies. We are live right now. Thank you very much for being with us. It's a real pleasure to welcome you to your information channel of everything that's happening in the world. Everything that's going on today, it's a tragic day. Do you already know why? Previous episode, you have all the details. Attack against the Jewish community in Australia.
Yeah.
Strategies. I'm going to talk about that too because I'm seeing comments and things that I think are despicable as a human being. I think they're horrible. But the news is that the Harriers have appeared in action. And now you're going to say, what are the Harriers? What is that you're talking about? And everyone is going to want to know what's going on. So we're going to give you all the information. What are Harrier jets? Why can they take off from a parking lot? Like I said, I'll get into it. What's so special? It's a legendary bomber. Fast, agile, very lethal with a very specific type of mission. And it comes into play today. Have you done the route that the rhinos did yesterday? Today, the Harriers are doing it. We're already discussing fully integrating various combat platforms, each assigned a specific mission in Venezuela's liberation. Now we're going to give the details and you'll see it, but please, it's super important, family. Give your likes, your comments. We're live, we're on air. One more day, another story, another chapter in the liberation of Venezuela.
No.
Rome wasn't built in a day. I always say some things take time, some things obviously do. Take their time. The Harriers have now disappeared from the radar, or at least that's the information I have. I'm not sure if you're watching live, but I just did a playback of what happened a moment ago. A few minutes ago, as I prepared the live stream, well, they were over there doing their usual round. Again, same area, same practice route. Aruba, Curacao. I think they're using the island of Aruba and the island of Curacao as also the one we have here, Bonaire, as a kind of naval training range. They're fine-tuning the radars. They're fine-tuning the filters of the electronic warfare systems. They're detecting the presence of other aircraft. They're working on multi-platform operations. Now we'll explain how this works. Thank you for all the daily love, including on Twitter, where you can follow me, Estrade Militar. On Twitter, we also have TikTok, and now we've recovered the official account, estrategiasmilitares.official in English. We're working on it. We're talking with TikTok to see how we can handle our content there. TikTok is quite interested in having us do it. Also, we're going to be interested too because they're using our content illegally on TikTok, right? Just a reminder again. You can try to imitate this channel, but in the end, you can't compare it to anything else that's done online. Each channel has its own idiosyncrasy. Each channel has its own style, its own way of doing things. And that's inimitable. Thank you very much, really. Thank you so much for being with us. Well, you also have the super chat goals, you also have the comments, and you also have PayPal. And also congratulations to the entire Jewish community this Hanukkah, a sad Hanukkah. because of how it started. But you have to be resilient. You have to stay on the same path and keep working well. Do you see the Harriers there? Let's see what happened. They've been there. I'm speeding it up by setting it to X2 so it goes faster. Just testing it out. The paths they have made? Let's take a look at the route these planes have taken. At 17,000 and 18,000 feet, the Harrier's a plane. It's a fighter bomber, but above all, it's more oriented towards ground attack. At least that's how it's always been. Right? It's known for its air-to-air capability, which it obviously has, but it also has very good capability in that area. For air-to-ground, the mission profile it carries out. That's why flying at 17,000 or 18,000 feet means an attack is imminent. Ground targets with free-fall munitions, precision munitions, surface-to-air missiles. Sorry, I mean air-to-surface missiles. Excuse me? And this aircraft has a very special capability. Let's stop the playback there. And we're going to show you a couple of videos of the Harrier so you know which aircraft we're talking about and why this aircraft, specifically the Harrier, is so important. The Attack Vertical 8 is the embarked wing of the Iwo Jima. Can you see it here? This is its main feature. It can land vertically, take off vertically, and take off, as you can see, but also direct the jet thrust from its turbine at different angles. This allows it to land practically, as I said, anywhere. It can land in the middle of a field, almost literally. Be there, take off, and go out to carry out its mission. It's a plane that's made precisely like that so that in the first stage of modern warfare, it can take off from ships or from aircraft carriers. Carry a lot of ammunition, much more in weight than what an F-18 can carry because of the type of munitions it can transport. But it shouldn't be penalized by having to use the takeoff ramp. Instead, it should be able to take off vertically. That's one of its main features, among others. Thank you for watching the video at low speed. It's a very precise aircraft. It's an aircraft made precisely for this, for vertical takeoff or on very short runways. It was unique for decades. To operate on light aircraft carriers, on amphibious ships like the Iwo Jima, and which was created in the 1960s. It's a legend. This plane is a legend. The United States Marine Corps develops its own version of the improved attack vertical developed. The most well-known variant currently in operation and performed today is the Attack Vertical 8B Harrier 1I, a profound evolution. This aircraft is now being replaced by the F-35B, the Marines' naval version capable of vertical takeoff. And now we're going to look at a very interesting photo to learn about the features and compare it with an F-35. In many ways, there are things they have in common, but others that are completely different.
Alejados.
The Harrier is not a stealth aircraft, meaning it is not a low radar signature aircraft. And now we're going to see it. We're going to show a photo that's pretty clear about this topic and leaves no room for doubt. It's a close air support aircraft. Close support to what? To ground troops, it's an aircraft that, let's imagine, during a Marine landing. To La Horchila, for example. Horchila, or a place on the coast of Venezuela, Punta Cardón, for example. It can appear quickly and unleash hell on the ground, dropping cluster bombs, high explosive bombs, anti-tank missiles, guided missiles. It can do everything, practically. Why close air support? Let's imagine those troops are landing and they encounter strong opposition from the Chavistas, from the army, from the Cartel of the Suns. Let's imagine they have vehicles that are targeting the Marines. The Marines are in a compromised situation. They call for air support at that moment. Harry, are they patrolling like the ones we were just watching right here? They come into the scene, head quickly to Punta Cardón, and maybe let's imagine that this confrontation is happening on the main road that leads to Punta Cardón. Planes arrive, Harriers at low altitude. Almost practically unseen, they launch a deadly attack, sweep the area, and go in and out. Quick attacks. Light. Now you're going to see the capabilities this plane has to fly in small spaces. It's something to keep in mind in this story. Something very, very important to keep in mind. Let's go back to the video. Let's go back to the video to explain what's happening. All right, as I was saying, it's a plane that has that capability, that peculiarity. It's a plane that's being replaced. Obviously, it already is. There are only a few units left flying in the world. The Spanish Navy had a version of the Harrier on the aircraft carrier Príncipe de Asturias, and they still have the Harriers. They still have those planes, right? Juan Carlos I, which is the aircraft carrying ship. It's not an aircraft carrier, it's an aircraft carrying ship, because it doesn't have the capability for planes to take off using a ramp. Isn't a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier about 333 meters long? That's why these planes are made. This one seems too small. That's why there's a need for an F-35B to be able to operate it like the Italian Navy does, and also, for example, like the British Navy does on its aircraft carrier. Differences? Well, look at this. This is a real video of a Harrier. It resembles Top Gun, but isn't from the movie. It's a plane that has, as you can see, an incredible maneuvering capability, being able to make very sharp movements, very abrupt ones. That is, the turning angle it has. Can you see how it reacts quickly to the pilot's control stick movement? And it's very precise. It's like an arrow, but not very fast. We'll see how fast the Harrier goes when we discuss speeds. We're talking about an aircraft that has a range of about 1,000, well, it has a range of about 700 kilometers, depending on the load, between 500 and 700. It can refuel in flight, and this is also very important. It can do in-flight refueling and has a speed of about 1,080 kilometers per hour. A Mach 0.9, if we compare the speed of an F-18, for example, we would say that an F-18 can go at a higher speed. It's a much faster plane. It can go at about 1,915 kilometers per hour at high altitude. 1,900 now, 1.6 up from 0.59. But that lack of speed compared to other aircraft gives it the advantage of being able to maneuver as you're seeing right now. That is, having precise maneuverability in small spaces. Do you see how it's cutting through the mountains there? Of course, forget about the snow for a moment. Forget about the landscape you're seeing for a moment, but focus on the rugged, mountainous landscape you're seeing. Because this is what I've always talked about and what I've always wanted to draw attention to, right? How to enter some areas of Venezuela.
No.
To launch precision attacks without putting the aircraft at risk? No, or that allows us to carry out a precise attack, a deadly attack. Always as discussed. Let's go to the map so we can understand an example of how this Harrier jet is used and why what is happening right now is important. And now we're going to talk about its ability to work in a multi-platform way with other aircraft. Let's imagine that the Harrier comes in, just like we saw in that video. Through these mountains, imagine that it starts to come in through here, covered by the silhouette and the shadow of the mountains. It comes in through the La Guaira area, enters through this valley that's practically deserted, out of radar range. A nighttime operation, not during the day, so it won't be seen because it has a weak point, and now you'll see it. What's the weak point of this plane? By the way, the information we're giving is known by Venezuela. They have Russian advisors. Russia knows this plane well. They've also spied on it for a long time. It's been a very spied-on plane. In that sense, we're not putting any operation at risk with this. There is no operation that is currently at risk. I want to make that clear because I know the comments that are going to come like, are you giving Maduro hints on how to defend himself from this kind of aircraft? Gunpowder has already been invented. All we do is analyze and look at their strengths and weaknesses. And how could it be used in an operation like this? Family, please are they trying to censor this channel? Let's avoid it at all costs. We were saying mainly at night, and now you'll understand why. Going through these mountains takes us directly to an area where we can avoid Guatire, for example, and approach Caracas via the Petare area. To launch the attack, for example, La Carlota, the main military base inside Caracas, or to launch an attack on Fuerte Tuna. That's an example. What's the main problem with this plane? Well, you can imagine that to be able to take off with so much weight, you need a very powerful engine. The biggest enemy today for this type of aircraft, one of the biggest enemies, besides the design. Planes with stealth capability and low radar signature have less carrying capacity than a Harrier. Obviously, an F-35 can't carry all the equipment that a Harrier can carry. Another issue they face is the heat. The 5,000 missiles, these famous ones are discussed widely on social media, in the media, and many other places. They have a problem. The Harriers have with them, and it's that they have a large radar signature. Let's compare now with a photograph. The thermal image of an F-35 with a Harrier. You'll understand what you see. Clearly, let's look for the photo here. We'll put it up. Here we are. Look, we're seeing an image with a thermal camera of F-35 on top, Harrier on bottom. Clear, the jet of energy coming out from both turbines. In the case of the Harrier, it has two. In the case of the F-35, it only has one. Notice that in the case of the F-35, the rest of the chassis remains almost completely without any heat signature. You can see the dark area. The heat signature appears in white, the areas where there is heat. Take a look. On the Harrier, practically the entire central part of the fuselage, the whole fuselage gives off heat on this plane, meaning it can be easily seen with a thermal camera. The Igla missiles, these 5,000 famous missiles, use heat to guide themselves to a target. The Harrier, in this case, is a target that can be locked onto by this type of missile, and because of the type of mission it carries out. At low altitude, entering these kinds of places, it can be ambushed. This kind of threat doesn't mean it will be shot down directly. It has a series of systems, including countermeasures such as decoys with flares. That is, flares that are released to produce much more heat. So the missiles target the flares instead of the plane. It becomes practically impossible to lock onto it, to block it in the missile's targeting system. But it is clear there's a huge difference between the stealth capability of one plane and the lack of stealth capability in another plane that doesn't have it. Here, the operation is underway. This photo shows a vertical takeoff. When those engines start projecting energy horizontally, it also changes. But the Harrier still has a pretty large heat signature. I think with this, one of the main differences we have is already becoming clear with an F-35. What else can we say about the Harrier? Well, the Harrier's a plane that has been modernized. It also has more uses. The Harriers can be loaded with extra fuel, and they can also serve as a relay point. To this day, different systems have been developed to provide capabilities to the Harrier that it didn't have natively. One of them, or one of these stories? Just a moment. Please excuse me, I'm going to request a video. Is one of these okay? One of these is power
Poder.
to throw, attacks to suppress air defense systems. If they are given the coordinates, they can launch munitions that can reach there, do it quickly, go in, destroy air defenses, for example, anti-aircraft guns, mobile platforms. It's a very versatile aircraft in that sense. All right, let's continue here. Let's continue. Take a look. There we see it landing on the deck. An aircraft carrier? Of course, this means it can operate from land or from the sea. As of today, what's happening? Let's now go take another look at the situation of what happened today. There we see them. They were doing the same pattern, kind of circling around each other. Right now, what those planes are doing is integrating themselves with the rest of the aerial platforms that are operating. The F-18S, the F-35S, the planes that are about to arrive, most likely, and they're all coordinating, each one with its own mission format. The F-18S are suppressing anti-air defenses with electronic warfare systems. The F-35S are also destroying radars or zones where the mission requires stealth capability, low observability, and low radar signature. The Harriers attacking enemy positions on the ground. Is a dimensional map of a battlefield adapted to Venezuela being created?
No.
That's why maybe now, seeing all this, we start to understand a lot of the things that are happening. For example, the Harriers have been disembarked from the Iwo Jima. These Harriers are part of the Iwo Jima's embarked wing. And they've been taken to Ponce, they've been taken to Ceiba, to Puerto Rico. They've been brought here to Ceiba, to this base, and they're together with the F-35S. So now we can start to understand that the Iwo Jima is mainly going to focus on landing operations, transporting aircraft to transport Marines. The Harriers are going to attack from Puerto Rico. Midway aerial refueling, that is, roughly at the center of the Caribbean Sea. They are going to refuel to regain that range we mentioned, about 800 kilometers roughly, 700 and 800 kilometers. In combat situations, I think it will decrease because they must accelerate, keep changing often, and can't fly or go high. The higher a plane flies, the less fuel it consumes. In this case, it won't be like that because it's a combat operation and they're going to provide support, close and fast support. We need a plane at this point, at point A, because we're encountering enemies that we can't destroy from the ground, and we need air support. There's the Harrier. That's its mission, so now we can move forward. That there will be a military landing of troops somewhere, that there will be close attack presence, and that the Harrier will play an important role in this story.
Yeah.
With this, I want to make it clear, very clear. The plane is impressive. The plane is impressive. We can see it there. A kind of glider tank in the sky. Isn't it a very nice plane? A legend of aviation. And it's lethal and can carry a lot of ammunition. It also has a pretty powerful machine gun for ground attack. Which, well, its strength isn't defending itself from other aircraft. It can also carry air-to-air missiles if necessary. It can defend itself, but it's not made for that. No, it doesn't have that capability. All right. Let's see what the Harriers have done. Let's look at the full mission format. Look, what we're seeing is that they've been here for a few minutes. Notice that they've spent less time than the F-18S. That's because they have less fuel. Although surely in this mission, they weren't carrying munitions, they were carrying external fuel tanks to give them greater range. But both have gone in the same direction, the direction from which they came, which is from Saba. I think they just came back. They came back a little while ago, right? Over there. So take a look. This is what happened with the Harriers in this first appearance of this plane. What can we see today? Can we see if maybe they'll come back? If they're carrying out operations? If they're training, it's very likely that these planes will come back soon. Surely on their way back, they must have refueled, and there were probably more planes involved in this operation that we haven't seen. But they were there. A combination of F-18G electronic warfare aircraft with a Harrier, a very good combination. You have a lot of firepower because you have a lot of munitions load, and you have the capability to suppress anti-air defenses with the F-18. It allows them to get in and out. We haven't seen them activated again. I'm disconnecting the playback, and we notice a lot of activity in Puerto Rico, which really catches our attention. Right now, there are a lot of helicopters flying around. There are a lot of planes flying patrols. Naval warplanes or naval observation or intelligence planes. They are also patrolling a lot. Today there is a lot of activity in the Dominican Republic as well. There is a lot of security activity in the areas where the aircraft are. American tankers. You already know the Dominican Republic is now a refueling island. And that's something unusual. Yesterday, we didn't see so much activity in the nearby areas. Look here in the area near Trinidad and Tobago. 3 planes at this moment, light maritime surveillance aircraft. They're not P-8 Poseidons, but they're planes that are quite versatile for work. The BAT-86, that's the call sign it has, and the BAT-91, which are surely looking for oil tankers. They might be monitoring Nicolas Maduro's and Iranian boats to prevent attacks on Trinidad and Tobago, likely revealing their positions. What is Caracas doing? Well, is there a plane with a military registration or designation? This one we're looking at, the one we don't know which it is? This is incredible. We don't know what kind of plane it is, but it's around here. It's in the Caracas area. You see the interference there, you see what that plane is doing. That's because there are F-18G planes operating right now. What it just did, moving back and forth from place to place. Between La Guaira and Miranda, it's circling around the Guadarrey area. Why is it circling there? Because most likely the scenario I mentioned about the F-18 coming in through these mountains is something the regime is worried about. Maybe, but I don't really know. Since we don't know the plane type or if it's Russian or Chinese surveillance technology, we just don't know. Look how the plane is acting and the changes it's making. These changes in direction? Do you see that? That's the result of electronic warfare. Can you see it there? We don't know. It's at 16,000 feet like the Harriers. And it's circling around here. Let's check the rest of the air traffic in the area. We have this twin-engine plane. We have a plane on the runway. At Simon Bolivar, a Piper that's landing, coming from the Varinas area. Another one stranded in Maracaibo has passed through Gran Roque. And now it's coming back in this direction. Fesna? Citation 1. Here it is. That's what we have right now. So, it's an interesting day. The situation we have right now is a situation... Unusual activity currently in Saba. We hadn't seen the Harriers come in until now, or at least we had no evidence that they had been around there. I don't remember it. Maybe it did happen, but I don't remember it. It's been a while since we saw them, so now we do know they're there. I hope that's clear, family. When more things happen, we'll go live again. We'll keep commenting so it doesn't get too heavy. We'll talk about whatever happens. Stay tuned for today. More things can happen. More can happen at any moment. Subscribe, hit the bell. It's super important so you get the notifications. We're on our way. 367,000 military strategies greetings.